This is the Mooring Committee of the Harbor Management Commission meeting, virtual meeting on August 11th, 2021, commencing at 4:03 on August 11th. We have an agenda that's been distributed and was posted online. The first item, well, the people attending are Kim Taylor and Jeff Stedman, and let me check again. Harry French, are you on the line? And do we have anyone from Pequot Yacht Club on the line? No. Okay. Well, perhaps others will join us.
Right.
With respect to a waiting list update, as of today, there are 72 people previously approved by the Harbor Master on the waiting list, and there are now 4 pending waiting list applications for the naming of the new Harbor Master at this point. One of those 4 did not make the $50 payment, and an automatic email was sent reminding that person that they needed to do that to lock the place on the waiting list, and that has not occurred. So it may be there are only 3 serious pending applications.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But
yep.
I mean, they don't just for the record. I mean, their date and time of request is noted so that they don't lose their place on.
Correct. I'm not certain. We'd have to double check with Online Mooring. I think they may have to have made their payment. I believe that Ed told me that that's what triggers it. They have to apply and pay, and that sort of locks them in. That one of them did not.
Okay.
I don't know that for certain. We'd have to double check with Online Mooring. It would make sense, I guess.
Yeah.
3 of them did make their payment.
Hi, Jack. Harry.
Hi, Harry. Good. Thanks for joining. Harry, we were just talking about the waiting list. There are 72 people on the waiting list right now, and there are 4 pending applications, and we were just discussing 3 of the 4 paid the $50 according to Online Mooring. 1 did not. So I believe the way the system works is it doesn't lock their place in line until they've made their $50 payment. But I'm not certain about that. It could be the application itself without the payment. I'm not sure. So we can check Online Mooring.
I think you're right. It has to do when they put the $50 down.
Yeah, that's, I believe, what Ed told me. So.
Yeah, that would make sense. But okay, but that's good news. I mean that it's the system is working, and people's requests are being even if they're not being acknowledged with an email from the Harbor Master, they're being acknowledged in the system.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Good.
The Online Mooring system, this is an update, second item on the agenda. We had an issue with the April payments by Online Mooring to the town of Fairfield. These are done electronically, and due to an error at Online Mooring, they accidentally cut off the date in the month of April that they were making the deposit to us for people who had processed fees and charges. They cut it off too early in the month, so they sent us a deposit for a partial month. Then they recognized in June that they had made this mistake and sent us the remainder. What they didn't realize is the first small amount, they sent it to us twice. So the current situation, if Online Mooring's analysis is correct, and Betty is checking this out with finance just to confirm this, she has all the documentation that she needs. It just needs to verify with finance that what we're being told happened by Online Mooring with respect to deposits is in fact what the town sees. But it looks like the town actually needs to write a check because they overpaid us by $865 with respect to what they owed us for the month of April. So while Betty's resolving this, the town is ahead of the game at the moment by a mistake on the Online Mooring's part. So that's where we're
at least that's good.
Yeah, I guess. Took a little while to untangle this because it wasn't making any sense to the folks in finance who caught this problem with trying to reconcile the town bank account. And then I just could not figure out, looking into the Online Mooring system, what had happened here. And it took Brad at Online Mooring to investigate it to uncover what had happened. So it sounds like Brad's confident that this is resolved. He apologized profusely, and indicated that they consider the proper financial payments to their clients to be their most important responsibility of all their responsibilities. So he apologizes.
So
that's
we
nearly
owe
fixed,
the
but I
folks
think.
in finance.
What's that?
Sorry, we owe the folks in finance lunch or dessert or cupcakes or something.
Right. Indeed we do. So I imagine the right way to resolve this would be for the town to pay them their $865 rather than settling through some other kind of offsetting, like not making our payments to them for fees that we owe them. So
Right.
I think the clean way to do it is give them their money back.
But presumably the town will tell us, no?
Yes, I assume they'll. As soon as Betty has verified what we heard from Online Mooring, the town will tell us how they want it handled.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
The next item on the list is just an update for everyone. I think folks on the line were copied, except perhaps Jeff, you were not. There were two separate situations in the last 30 days where people with wall moorings in the South Anchorage were not in their proper assigned position by the harbor master, which created a problem for the boater who couldn't put his boat on the mooring that he was assigned by the harbor master. And in one case, in the course of trying to resolve this with binoculars from shore, it was pretty clear that one of the boats that was in the wrong place had New York registration numbers on it, which was quite concerning since we don't have New York registered boats on town moorings. And
right.
that we were able to, upon investigation, figure out through Online Mooring that it was the right vessel, but the owner of the vessel was not only on the wrong mooring, but also hadn't changed his registration numbers from his New York registration to his new Connecticut registration. So he was very close to having his boat towed away by having a New York boat in a town mooring. So
wow.
Anyway, he did promise he would get his numbers fixed right away and that he would put his boat on the proper mooring. In one of the two cases, it sounded like the two owners were comfortable, both of them, just staying flip-flopped in their row rather than meeting at an appointed time and flipping their boats. But all of this goes to something we'll talk about a little bit later, which is the need for a harbor master to be able to patrol what's going on in the harbor and not have chaos occurring in the harbor.
Yeah.
Right.
I was hopeful that we could have someone from Pequot on the line, ideally Jeff Engborg. I don't know if Jeff, were you able to join us today? Or anyone from Pequot? One of the questions that came up, well, actually twice, with both of the boaters in error, were complaints that we don't mark our moorings so that they could tell that they were at their correct mooring. One fellow told me that he was relying on the lat and long in the online mooring system to identify his mooring, and that's why he was in the wrong place. It's his explanation. We know that those lat and longs were just sort of eyeballed to make the diagram in the online mooring system look correct, and they certainly are not intended to be the accurate lat and long for each of the moorings. So a question, I don't know the answer. There must be a reason why we have never had these mooring balls marked in any way. And I think because people use the same mooring year after year, probably hasn't been an issue. But for newer folks, absent someone from PYC pointing them to their correct new mooring, we do run the risk of what happened twice with two separate boaters, affecting four boaters. So,
in the past, when the sticker came, there was a 8.5 by 11 sheet that showed where your boat was going, and that you could count back, like where I used to be. I was at the head, so I was at the first mooring from the outlet from the Country Club of Fairfield.
Mm-hmm.
So you could count back 2, 3, 4 moorings to make sure you were in the right one.
Right. So it's a question, I guess, for Jeff, and there must be a very good explanation. The boaters both asked me about it, and I didn't have a very good answer other than it had, to my knowledge, hadn't been done in the years I've been there ever. So, and people seemingly found their way to their moorings, and notwithstanding that, they need to use the mooring that was assigned to them by the harbor master. Otherwise, it just gets chaotic. So we need to, I guess, think about that with our new harbor master as we issue mooring assignments for next year. One possibility, I think Jeff Engborg mentioned to me, was that we could look into posting the race diagram for the harbor, which shows the mooring sequence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that would be.
Put that on the online mooring system. That might be a help, and maybe a notation that the lat and lawns shown are not. It is for depiction on the photograph of the harbor, but they're not intended to be the actual lats and lawns. So,
yeah.
Anyway, there's some questions about that, and I think another reason why it's important that the harbor master be able to make sure boats are in the right place in the harbor.
Right.
Sure.
Right. Could I interrupt for
Yep.
just a second?
Yeah.
And Jeff Engborg would know this, but are there not state-established standards for the mooring buoys? That doesn't preclude us being able to mark them in a certain way, but we have to. I think the buoys in color and some other things have to comply with a state standard, but that shouldn't interfere with us being able to mark them. I know. I believe in some of the other towns they put a sticker on the, but the sticker is the same for everybody. It has a number on it. But we can figure that out.
And I'm not sure that we need to start doing something different than we've done for decades in this harbor. It may be like Harry is saying, we just need to give people some online tools, or I hope not snail mail, but something that could be sent to them electronically that would help them to figure out, especially for the new folks, where they're supposed to go.
Well, that's interesting.
I think both of these people were newly assigned that were in the wrong place. And the other thing that we should talk to Jeff about is the south wall. You'll recall we did add another mooring. I think it's where Mr. Goldstein's boat is, that Hinckley jet boat, and the first boat in the south wall as you come into the harbor. That was added on, and I understood from Ed, and I believe that's what's done now, that is being designated as South Wall 0. And so it's all the more confusing because we have the first mooring in that South Wall row is numbered 0, not 1. So one possibility is think about fixing that so that it's more obvious who's in the right place. So if you were, it wasn't the explanation for this person was 3 boats in front of where he was supposed to be. So that's not the explanation, but I do think the South Wall numbering sequence deserves another look.
You know, if they number each individual mooring, put a big number 1. Like whenever you go to Northport, okay, there's all kinds of buoys there, and they all have numbers on them, so that when you pick up that, you know you're at buoy number 5 or buoy number 10. If they did that for the harbor, then you could assign Mr. Jones to buoy number 1 or number 2. And
right,
so
we probably would want to use the coding that we've already got, so we'd want to just have them correspond to the official names in our system and on the race drawing and everything else. But I guess the question is, why is it that it hasn't been on the past? I bet there's a good reason. I just have no idea what it is. So it'd be nice to talk to Jeff about this and understand better about that.
I remember when I got my stickers before, I always got along with that, the 8.5 by 11 sheet showing my area, or the harbor basically, and where I belonged.
Right. I also feel confident that, although the harbor master won't be around all the time, that the staff at PYC would be pleased to point new
Oh, sure.
newly assigned folks
I'm
at their
sure.
official mooring. After all, they place all the moorings. They certainly know which ones are which. So that would be another option. So
Yeah.
we need to think about it for next year in January as we assign folks for the first time, especially to help them to find their proper moorings.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So in the course, the fourth item on my list here, in the course of resolving these flip-flopped situations, which both were brought to my attention by Justin Cathcart. So the wronged boater, absent a harbor master, didn't know what to do, and so contacted Justin through the Parks and Rec department, and Justin contacted me in Kim's absence when she was on vacation. So Justin and I had an opportunity to have a conversation just to confirm how things work between the Parks and Rec department assignment of their administrative things and the way our harbor master assigns mooring permits. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between the time of year that Justin does his assignments and the time of year that our harbor master, following our rules, does our assignment. So what I wanted to report from that conversation is Justin confirms that if someone's been assigned one of the Perry Green moorings that are administered by Parks and Rec in 1 year, that the proper thing would be for the harbor master to, in January, along with all the others, to offer the renewal of that permitted boat. That applicant should be offered the renewal. So the email should go to the Perry Green person. So the presumption, Justin says, is that we should be renewing those folks. To the extent that people don't renew, later in the spring, the April-May time frame, Justin gets to the Perry Green moorings and will issue a sticker that they actually issue for those boats, and will fill empty slots as he can from the waiting list that he has. So he's on a cycle that's late in the spring. Our harbor master is all done with work by the time Justin gets started. And Justin was fine with that. I think the most important thing for us to know is in the beginning of January, if someone had one of those Perry Green moorings administered by Parks and Rec, the harbor master should just include those folks along with all the other 130 people that he's renewing. Actually, it's not going forward. It will only be the South Anchorage ones that he's sending those out to. So, but it would be part of his normal January renewal activity.
Okay.
Kim or Harry, is that anything different than you were understanding before?
No.
Okay. I just didn't understand how it worked because I didn't know what Justin.
I didn't either. So that's good to know.
I'll be honest, I didn't either.
Yeah. Justin, I think there are some unused moorings of the Perry Green administered moorings. It probably deserves another conversation with Parks and Rec, perhaps even a meeting with them. It's not, he's got a lot on his plate, and it's not his top priority to focus on those. He's also focusing on vessels that are under 20 feet long to fit in there, and so he gets people who want to put boats there, but they're too long according to the limits of space that he's aiming for, and so he ends up with vacancies. It's probably worth a conversation about how to try to avoid having unused moorings.
Yeah. Now, some of those are also on mud at low tide too, aren't they?
There's some really shallow ones that the depth varies. I looked at the chart, and the depth varies along that line there. So there are some that are much shallower. In fact, the Perry Green 01, which is one of their administered moorings, is no longer even placed because of how shallow that is. So we just start with PG 02 now. But so your point is right. As you get close to PG 10, the water is deeper. And there are some moorings further down that are administered through the harbor master, and the water's a little deeper as it gets close to the whaler dock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Well, you can see the mud at really low tide.
Yeah. Right. So that's part of the problem. When people find out about the situation of those moorings, it becomes difficult for Justin to place people in them. even though they've been on his waiting list.
So he keeps a separate waiting list for Perry Green spots?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Right, because those are distinct from like the yacht yard, and certainly distinct from what's going on at the marina.
Right.
And again, it's also not a focus priority. That may be why it's worth having a conversation about whether, consistent with the deed, whether it makes sense for Perry Green to delegate some of that to the harbor master. I don't know if that's feasible, but we should at least talk about vacant moorings that don't have to be vacant, potentially.
Yeah.
All right. The fifth thing I had today was just an update on the Harbor Master Patrol Vessel generous donation offer from Pequot Yacht Club. I was informed on July 24th by Jared Schmidt, who's the town chief fiscal officer, that the town regrets that it's decided it cannot accept the offered Boston Whaler from PYC. He indicated that the reason was concern about the vessel's age, and the town had related liability risk concerns because of the age of the fiberglass Boston Whaler center console boat. Secondly, he mentioned something about concern about the cost to maintain a boat of this age. I reminded him that the cost of maintenance of the boat was going to be borne by the harbor management account, which is exclusively used for purposes of managing the harbor and exclusively for deployment by the Harbor Management Commission. And he acknowledged that, but that was one of their two concerns. So it strikes me that we should, I guess, try to make some recommendation to the whole commission, but there are really four options, I think. One is that we move forward with no vessel for the harbor master to patrol with. Second option would be to use a different town boat, something like the Shellfish Commission's boat or one of the Public Works vessels or one of the other boats that the town owns. A third option would be to get comfortable using a private boat not owned by the town for the harbor master to conduct his duties. And the fourth option would be to purchase a boat that would be acceptable to the town, presumably a new boat. I did do a little quick checking on what that could look like, and the smallest Boston Whaler skiff, which is 13 feet long, a new one today can be ordered with just a 25 horsepower brand new motor, and it would cost about $20,000 without a trailer, without the signage, and certainly more than the donated boat expense that we were looking at.
Yeah.
So it feels like those are the four choices, and we sort of need to decide what our go-forward strategy would be. It's a little bit tied to our search for harbor master because our description of the job involves using a harbor master boat. So I'm not sure that's a critical issue, but it's a consideration. So I'll stop there.
Some years ago.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
We talked with the Assistant Attorney General who was assigned to the Bureau of Aviation and Ports, and he helped us with the harbor master matters on a statewide basis. And at that time, there were a number of harbor masters who used their own vessels for whatever they were doing. And we talked about the insurance requirements. And he said that there would be a need, although the state indemnifies a harbor master in the performance of his or her duties, that has to do with decisions of the harbor master, not, if there's a accident or he runs over somebody with his boat. So that there was a need to have not just the personal insurance that someone would have on their boat, but an additional amount of insurance that would reflect the use that the harbor master was putting the boat to. But the indemnification of the harbor master doesn't extend to what he might do, what they might do with their boats. I forget what the cost of that would be. But I think I mentioned that though. We talked about that with respect to the, but in Stratford. But that was insurance applied to a town-owned boat.
Right.
Here
we had looked into in the course of our documentation for this about whether there would be any additional premium on the town's master insurance, and I think, Kim, you had found out that there was no additional premium that would be owed.
Right.
So the liability piece doesn't seem to be the factor here.
Yeah.
Not the liability insurance piece, right? Yeah.
We do
How
have
about if the
we do
Harbor
have two
Commission,
signs.
Kim, you want to go first?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead,
We do
Kim.
have two fiberglass signs that are about 4 feet long that say Harbor Master, that we could put on the side of any, the aw shucks or any other boat that we were borrowing. So that part of it is already done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the question is about should there be a boat? The first question. Should we revisit that at all altogether? And then if there is, which of these options do we want to pursue?
Yeah.
Would there be a way that let's just say Pequot owns the boat and the Harbor Commission rents it for X dollars a year?
It's interesting.
Interesting. I think I think that would depend on what Pequot wants to do.
Yeah. I mean,
the other question I think it's a good idea. The question that comes immediately to mind is whether there's a propriety issue there. So the rental should be market rental, not that we're getting some special deal from the club. From a conflict standpoint, but that could be worked out, I think.
Perhaps someone from the Harbor Commission buys the boat. Let's just say for $1,000, and they then just rent it to the Harbor Commission for the harbor master, and maybe work something out as a maintenance where the harbor management pays for the maintenance because they're the only ones that are going to use the boat.
Yeah, I'm wondering how the town would see that as, if we had the obligation of the maintenance, how they would see that as different than the exposure we had by just accepting the gift. I'm not poo-pooing, I'm just trying to play this out here.
No. Understand.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounded to me like their main objection was the age of the boat.
Right. The risk presented by a aged boat and the maintenance expense. So I think the cleanest thing to deal with that would be your first idea, which is just rent the boat for a fixed price from Pequot Yacht Club. And my only point is make sure it's not looking like we're getting a special deal that would be a quid pro quo, or somebody might see as that. But this is a 30-year-old boat. It shouldn't have a very high rent on it, right?
No.
So, but maybe we can talk to them about that. But I think we need to, whatever we're thinking about, we should get Jared to give us a nod that if we got a deal like that they wouldn't object to it. We don't need to go round and round on this with the town.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, they're getting the boat for nothing.
Right.
And they prefer to pay something.
Well, or prefer that we don't have a boat at all, perhaps. I don't know. I wasn't clear.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
By the way, I talked with someone yesterday, and if you don't want me to mention a name, I won't. but he's familiar with operating boats like the tender at Fairweather, Pequot, and other boatyards, possibly interested in the harbor master position.
Oh, that's good.
Great.
Good. Well, they know how to
Great.
apply. It's right on the town website.
Yeah.
It's on the
Nice.
town website, and actually today I think Betty has updated it with the job description, which hasn't been there before.
Well, good.
So.
Good.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll
So, Kim,
mention it to him.
What's your
Okay,
guidance,
great.
going back to the harbor master, but what's your guidance on what we should do for the meeting for next week with respect to this question? I think
we
the
have
idea of the rental is intriguing.
I think it's very intriguing, but I think that we I think before we introduce that to the commissioners, I think we need to chat with the yacht club about it.
For sure.
For sure. They were. It's a boat that they intended to get rid of, and they were going to replace with something newer, and so whether or not they have enough space to store it, whether or not they have any interest in, would have to, I get that we would pay for whatever insurance and whatever upkeep and whatever, the cost of rental would include their expenses.
Yeah, I think it would be not spelled. Yeah,
So,
I think perhaps not spelled out, so that's not a dollar for dollar reimbursement, but just built into the rental price.
Right.
Because the town's objection was about the maintenance expense being
right.
A risk.
But we would still have to, whether or not they want to keep it, whether or not they have room to store it, whether or not it's an added administrative thing that they want to deal with. The fact of the matter is that, especially now that we have a new conservation director, so that somebody can make a decision. We could go to him and say, especially at the beginning of the season or on a periodic basis, can we use shucks? I know that that's not what anybody wants to do. It's pretty low tech and not very sexy. But it might, since we don't have a harbor master and we don't know what the skills of the person that ultimately gets the position has. I think it's a little bit. Personally, I think it's a little premature to be asking the yacht club about renting a boat when we haven't specified in our job description that person even knows how to drive a boat, A, and B, we haven't talked to the yacht club about it. So
Right. Okay.
I like that. I like thinking like that. I like the idea that maybe there's a different way to approach it. But I don't. This is four of us, trying to think outside the box when we have a lot of other people who have rules and regulations and other considerations that they have to take into account. So, it may be that the yacht club decides to keep the boat. It may be that they, that once we get our ducks in order in terms of who the harbor master person is going to be, we can approach them, and it will work out beautifully for everybody. The other thing is we don't even need it full time.
No, that's a major thing. We only need it once a week.
Once a week,
not always at the same time, right?
Right, and on an emergency basis occasionally, and so.
Right.
And it may be next year that the Conservation Commission or the Shellfish Commission gets a new boat. Who knows? So I don't know. I think we should be thank the yacht club again and simply say we don't really know where we're going, and we'll check back in with you next spring and see what you've decided to do.
Okay. Yeah.
Would be my personal suggestion.
That sounds good.
Sadly, because it would have been wonderful to have it and to use our fancy harbor master signs and be able to be out there. But it's conspired. Things have conspired against us. So.
All right. Those are the things I had listed today. I don't think there's anything. No, there's nothing else on my list. Any other business that we should talk about?
I have had. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Another person asking about access to the online mooring account, and who was unable to get access until I sent the email that takes you right into an individual's account. An administrator can do that, and I'm just wondering what. I mean, I know Brad said that they send immediately a text or an email in response to people who are looking for access codes and stuff. But I'm just wondering
if they put in the address, the email address, or the phone number that they previously put into their application.
Yeah.
It's doing a check against what they've previously put in to make sure other people don't get into your application.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just wondering, is there something we should be doing at the outset when people are newly registering for their account? Is there I don't know, just wondering, because it certainly has taken up a lot of my time and your time, Jack, helping folks get access to accounts that have been set up for a while.
Yeah, so these are people who are adding things to their existing account or just looking at their account? What are they? Yeah,
trying to update their accounts. Some couple of people have bought new boats and wanted to get the new boat information in their accounts.
Right. And then this is literally they can't get into the account, so they put in their email, their correct email address, or they put in their correct cell phone number or whatever, and it won't give them access. Apparently,
that they then don't get the and I have no way of knowing whether they're putting in the original email that they used or they're putting in another one. But the problem still remains that Online Mooring thinks that they're responding, and the people who are waiting for the response can't seem to find it. So I just throwing that out there is for us to kind of think about. Is there a piece in between that we're missing?
Yeah, and how many of these have you gotten recently?
I probably had 5, 6.
Okay. And you also did communicate with Online Mooring about this, right?
Right, and they, the help desk was great, but there's a message that you can send, but it has to go to each one of these people.
One by one.
And one by one, and it takes 10 minutes, but it just, if you're not around to get the email, the notion that they might have to wait 2 days or so while somebody like you or me or the harbor master is aware that they've got a problem is kind of annoying.
Right. All right, well, let me, I guess, put in another message to Brad, and maybe we can have a phone conversation and talk about what our options are to make this easier for people. I'm sure he's tired of hearing from me about it.
I'm sure he is, too. And, I mean, we're all tired. I mean, people who are trying to get in are tired of trying to get in, and we're tired of saying, well, you do this and this, and then they come back and say, no, it doesn't work. So...
And just to be clear, they're saying that they've entered the correct thing and nothing comes back from Online Mooring telling them how to get access.
Yeah.
All right, let me try
and Brad has said that they've responded. So I believe everybody. I don't think anybody's making it up.
Right. Okay, well, it may be that we just confirm what we've been told, but we can try again and see what we can figure out.
Right, exactly.
I just wonder if something got, as they updated the way the logic works for our updated rules and procedures, that something got bollocksed up in their logic. I don't know.
Yeah. I've gotten complaints, if you will, from folks who have boats in the North Anchorage and the South Anchorage. So it doesn't seem to be limited to one group or the other.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll look into that.
Okay.
Anything else for this afternoon?
No.
All right, thanks for joining. We are
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.